Hi everyone, I'm Mel Howes. I'm the chairperson of the Irish Family History Society, and today I want to take you on a brief tour of getting started with your Irish family history research. And we'll look at some of the basic foundations for the family history research, and we'll look at some of the sites that are used. Should take about 30 minutes, so let's get started. Firstly, the Irish Family History Society. We've been in existence since 1984. We're a voluntary non-profit making society. We're based in Ireland, but have a worldwide membership. We have various activities throughout the year. We have talks that are always available on Zoom, some of which are recorded. We have outings. If you are based in Ireland, we go visit archives and other places of interest. We have a conference day in November, both in person and on Zoom. We publish an annual journal. We also release a monthly newsletter. You don't have to be a member to receive that. You just go to Substack and sign up. We have members' interest meetups, so collaborative sessions that happen quarterly for all members, where we talk about our research and any brick walls that we might have, again, all through Zoom. There are lots of educational materials in the Knowledge Centre in the members area. We utilize WhatsApp groups, again, this collaboration, communication, problem solving between the groups. And the last thing that we've just implemented is an Ask Gráinne AI research assistant. So without further ado, let's look at taking the first steps in your Irish family history research. Now, we all know what we want to do is go back in time, step by step. You start by what you know. So you write down what you know about you, your parents, your grandparents, and then you start to build up a picture of their lives and work backwards. How to go further back in time. The best way of actually getting this started is talk to people, talk to the older people in your family. So your parents, or grandparents, if they're still alive, your aunts and uncles, if they're still alive, whoever may be around to give you information. And most important of all, write it down. If you're like me, you're going to forget things, or you'll get something conflated with another fact and get mixed up. I do that all the time. I have to write everything down. I'm not ashamed of that. What you're looking to extract in order to do your research are the key pieces of information of somebody's name, the rough dates in which they were living and doing things, and roughly where they were living and doing things. So it's the name, the date, and the place. And then armed with that information, you can start building up your tree. And you can use what I call the foundations of Irish family history research to do this. And those are the civil records, the census records, the church records, and land records. And for each record that you do find, you want to analyze everything that's written on it. Don't just look at the transcription. Try to find the original record, picture of the original record. And you can look and you can see all the pieces of information that are there. And make a note of all of them. Make a note of the people around your particular family. That's, say, true of census records. Those things can be quite interesting, particularly if you're trying to find maybe a path of emigration. People often move with family units or neighbours. And always try to adhere to the genealogical proof standard. Try to find more than one piece of information that supports your theory. You're trying to look for two or more sources that are going to provide the evidence for you. So our first pillar, civil records. Civil registration commenced in 1864 for everybody, but there are Church of Ireland marriage records from 1845 onwards. Okay, so again, being aware of the religious denomination of your ancestors is important. Note there are privacy considerations. So although the records are freely available online, not for anything within the last 100 years for births, or 75 years for marriages, or 50 years for deaths. You would need to apply directly to the General Register Office to get those. However, everything else is available on the Irish genealogy site. So we're going to skip out of here and have a little demo. And here we go to Irish genealogy, and you can see you've got church. There are some church records on here, not just civil records, but for now, we're going to click on civil records. I am looking for the marriage of Peter Brady. Now, I'm choosing one that I know just so I can show this to you. He was in Baileyborough in 1875. It's a marriage record, and notice because it's a civil record that I've chosen, it just wants me to fill in some details here and acknowledge that I am making an application under the 2004 Civil Registration Act for this information. So I'm going to click search. Very quickly comes back. There's the one. I know this is the right one. As I say, I had done this originally. There are different search techniques you may need to employ if you cannot find who you're expecting to find. Widen the date range, change the spelling of the surname, put wildcards in the surname spelling. Omit a surname and use the first name. Omit a first name, just use the surname. Try to find the wife rather than the husband. So tips and tricks like that if you cannot find a piece of information. So this one we have here, and you can see it says view record image, and we'll get a PDF of the page with all of the marriages on it. And we'll scroll down and find the one that we're looking for, which is here, Peter Brady and Ellen Clark. You can see their ages, farmers, farmer's daughter, townlands, very important. Where were they residing at the time of marriage? Dundavan. Peter Brady was in Dundavan, and Ellen Clark was Great Gunya, I think is what it says there. It also can be spelled Great Gunya. His father's Peter Brady, her father's Andrew Clark. This is a farming community. The actual parish church was Killinkeer, which is in the registration district of Baileyborough. Okay. So back to our presentation. So the challenges with when you find information, when you find records, and you've got images of records, one of the challenges is actually reading those records. And you'll see in a minute when we look at a church record, it can be quite challenging for a variety of reasons. The only thing you can do really is practice reading the entries. There's something called paleography, which is the skill of reading old handwriting, essentially. You will find places that do courses in that or help with that. And that's something certainly in the Irish Family History Society that we do as well. So we have a course on that. Spelling of names can vary. So looking for Brady, maybe it's spelt Brody, or maybe it looks like it's spelt Brody and it's been transcribed as Brody, even though it actually is Brady. So you can use what's known as a wildcard, or which could be a single character like a question mark or a star, to denote, well, it could be any vowel essentially within that word. Things like Mac or O, they may or may not be present. Now, usually the Irish genealogy site will take into account both those conditions anyway. Other sites may not. So do be aware of that. Spelling can be, the original record may be spelt strangely. The way somebody has transcribed it and indexed it for you to be able to find it on a website may be quite creative as well. So you're dealing with two possibilities there. Sometimes events weren't registered. These civil records, it was law, and it continues to be law. You must register your birth, death, or marriage. Well, obviously somebody else registers your death. Anyway, it didn't always happen. Or you may not be able to find it due to how it has been transcribed and indexed. So do look for an alternative. So for the civil records, look for something like a church record, and then go back to the civil records armed with the information that you might have found on a church record. It could be that you as I say, look for the female partner in a marriage instead of the male partner. Sometimes records have been missed. There may be pages from registers that weren't included. For whatever reason, they might have been missed in the transcription process, they might have been missed in the digitization process. They're very few and far between, but it does happen. And sometimes events were simply not registered. There were some people that did not actually register the events. Again, if you think you do know when something is meant to have happened because you have a church record for it, then you can apply to Grow with that information and see if they can find the civil record for you. Looking at census records, there's a full census, well, pretty full census record, the household records for 1901, 1911, and 1926 now. That doesn't mean that everything else was destroyed in 1922. That's a popular myth. Yes, a lot of it was, but just to be very anal and accurate, The 1891 and 1881 census, the household returns, the census records, were pulped by the government in World War I due to a paper shortage. And just remember, a census was taken by the government to get statistics about the population as a whole, not actually to record who lived where. That really is that's a nice byproduct for genealogists, but it's less useful to the government potentially. So they had their statistics so they could destroy the actual household returns, which is what happened. Similarly, 1871 and 1861, the records were destroyed on the order of the government administration at the time, allegedly to protect confidentiality. The same order actually was given in England and Wales, but it wasn't carried out. The 1821, 31, 41, 51 censuses, those are the ones that were massively destroyed in 1922 in the fire in the Public Record Office. Now, interestingly, Irish census records in the detail, the household return detail, predate the England and Wales ones. England and Wales started in 1841. We have 1821, 31, 41, 51, if they all existed, which they don't. But fragments do survive. And fragments are continuing to be digitized when they turn up in local record collections, in somebody's house, somebody's attic, in another government archive. And the Virtual Record Treasury of Ireland are digitizing those, and the National Archives themselves have also digitized some of those. For example, if you are looking at County Cavan for 1821, there's quite a good collection still present, and you'll find that on the National Archives site, and it is digitized with the other censuses. So we're just going to take a look, in this case, at a census record. And go search the census here. And for this one, I'm just going to look at 1901. You can see you can search the pre-1901 censuses, the fragments that survive here on the right. Just click a different link, and similarly 1926. So I'm going to search for Peter Brady. Peter and Ellen married in 1875, so they're going to be, or they should be, one would think, in this census. So I'm just putting in some basic information, and that's interesting. So I obviously put in something wrong there. Let me clear that and start again. Census year 1901, surname Brady. Oh, Peter. Interesting. It is not very clever when you do a typo, so make a note of that. Looking at the census results, 85 returns for Peter Brady in County Cavan in 1901. Now, there are different ways you could narrow down this. You know what age he was in the marriage, you can put in an age range here. By just a short circuited for the purposes of this demo, I'm just going to scroll down to the one that I know it is, which is in Kilcully or Kilcully. This one here. And just to show you the information you get, you can see the information is transcribed here. We have an age of 51, he's a farmer. And when we go in and look at the household return PDF, you'll see that we have his wife Ellen, his children, and a couple of servants working on the farm there. You can see the religion, literacy, ages, and occupations, etc., and where they were born, if they were born in County Cavan or a different county, it'll be shown here. Okay. So then the next foundational pillar of Irish family history research are the church records. And I'm just going to quickly talk about Catholic and Church of Ireland records for the moment. There are obviously a lot of other religions. There's a lot of Presbyterian records available. There are Methodist, etc. We have information in the Irish Family History Society's Knowledge Centre. We have information about searching these dissenting, what would be known as dissenting Protestant religions, essentially. For the Catholic records, you're not going to get a huge amount in back beyond the early 1800s. In fact, you're going to have very little beyond the 1800s going back in time. The registers were simply not kept because it was illegal to be Catholic up until about 1827 or 1829, and I can never remember the date of Catholic emancipation, but in and around that date. Before then, whilst technically it was illegal to be Catholic, some records were kept, and blind eyes were made as well. I mean, just Some records will exist, some records don't. By and large, they don't. And it is quite difficult to get back earlier in Catholic records. You won't find burials recorded very often either. The parish registers are held at the local level. Surviving registers were microfilmed in the 1960s and 1970s, and those are the ones that are available on the National Library of Ireland site. We'll take a look at that in a second. And they basically contain the registers up until about the 1880. Some more recent registers, maybe up from that period of 1880 up until 1920, might be included on the subscription site Roots Ireland, where local family history societies have gone in and transcribed these records themselves. For the Church of Ireland records, it's good to remember that this was the state church up until 1869, which is great because they had all these lovely records and they were recording all the births and deaths and marriages that they needed to, and they sent all these parish registers into the Public Record Office for safekeeping, which then got burnt. So a lot of the Church of Ireland copies or original registers were burnt in 1922. However, many registers remain in local custody. Some are in the RCBL, the Representative Church Body Library, based in Dublin. And there are some available in microfilm, some available in Prony as well. As I mentioned, for the Catholic registers, we're going to take a look at the National Library of Ireland site. Roots Ireland is a great site because it is indexed and searchable, but it is a paid site. The Church of Ireland records, to figure out what actually remains, I'd recommend looking at the PDF that I've linked here. It will show you each parish and whether what time frame the registers would have been kept for, whether they exist or not, and where they are. Okay, so I'll have another quick look at church records, and this time we're going to take a look here. Let me go to registers and take a look at the map. I'm going to go into Cavan, and if you remember, Peter and Ellen were married in Killinkeer, which, just in case you can't see it, is here, Killinkeer and Mulla, the parish. And it was 1875 was their marriage. So here we have marriages, 1864 to 1880. And we'll open this, and this is a fine example of a horrible register to try and read, even though it's actually printed. So let me just go in here, select marriage, select 1875, apply that filter so it jumps down. Come into this, actually make this full screen. And I will move my gizmo out. Here we go, move that there. 1 second. 1875. Scroll across, and I'm just going to make that, as you can see, it's difficult to read, it's very dark. So you can use these controls at the top right to sort of change the brightness and contrast and see if you can actually read any of the information. I'm just going to make that slightly bigger. Come across here again. You can see 1875. There's a Brady there, it's not the right one, that's Michael Brady, Bridget somebody. Let me just scroll down, it's on this page. There will be a Peter Brady, and here we go, Ellen Clark. Peter Brady, Ellen Clark, Peter Brady, believe it or not, that says Mullahoran, and Ellen Clark, Graigna. I think it's probably written Cunha on here. Now, Mullahoran is the parish where Dundavon is. If you remember, Dundavon was the town land that was written on the civil marriage certificate. The interesting thing about the church record compared to the civil record is you get both parents. So we have Peter Brady and Mary Cunningham, Andrew Clark and Mary Cooney. And we can see that they're residing in, this couple are in Kilcully and this couple is in Great Cunha. There is also a dispensation here, which I'm not going to go into on this presentation, but you can take a look. It's very important to take a look at these registers and read what the dispensation says. It may be because they were getting married in Lent, during Lent, for example, which you need dispensation for. It could be that they were second or third cousins, in which case that would be noted there as well. Okay, so it does give you more information. So again, write down, write down everything that you find. And we just click that. And finally, our fourth pillar, land records. Now, I'm just going to talk about Griffith's valuation today. There are Tytha Plotman books from an earlier period as well. Again, all freely available. Griffith's valuation took place in the 1840s and 50s. So what I want to look at is Peter Brady, because we know Peter and Ellen were married in 1875 and Peter was 25 at the time, and his father was Peter Brady, a farmer. So the chances are his father, Peter Brady, who at the time in 1875, the home place seemed to be Dundavon, seemed to be the townland, that should be in Griffith's valuation. So let's take a look at the site Ask About Ireland, so that we can see what these records actually look like. So when you go to Ask About Ireland, this is the landing page. Just scroll down a wee bit so you can see the Griffiths valuation link. Have a look in here. Yes, type in Brady. Oops. Peter. And Kevin. And I happen to have already looked up where we should be. I believe it to be Drumlummon. So let's see if that, yep, that gives us 6 Peter Bradys, possibly all the same, just with 6 different rentals. So the Griffiths valuation is looking at land ownership and land leasing, essentially. So it's looking at who was renting land from whom, because it recorded the occupier of theoretically, every plot of land in the country. Now it's not actually complete. It's less complete for urban areas, quite inaccurate in urban areas. But for the wilds of County Cavan, it's not bad. So if we look at, there's a Peter Brady here who is, just looking at this, we have the townland on Covert. Okay, that's not Dundavon, so I'm not sure if that's the same Peter Brady. That could be a cousin, an uncle, a brother. Well, not a brother. We look at the second one. Here we have Dundavon. Now we can look at more information on this one here by actually opening the original page. And we'll make that a lot bigger. Just scroll down here. There we go. So you can see here, Dundavon. And we can see that Peter Brady has plots 9A and C, who he is leasing from Lord Farnham. That's an extra piece of information because maybe there are records in Lord Farnham's estate records, which are also held in the National Library of Ireland. So that would be the next place I would want to go searching. And you can see the type of plot being rented. There's a house, offices and land, plus a labourer's house. You can see the value in the acreage here. Interestingly, the constabulary force are renting from Peter. So he's subletting something to constabulary. And you can see the police barracks, offices and garden. And again, there's another plot of land, plot number 10 here, Peter Brady renting from Lord Farnham. And the railway is quite close by here as well. So you can see quite a lot of information here. There is also, just skipping back to this page, you can see map views. I'm not going to go into that. When you click into the map, you will see a map with plot numbers on it. They may or may not correspond accurately with these plot numbers. The maps tend to be of a different date compared to this original publication of the Griffiths valuation. So the records were kept up to date over a period of time. They were maintained and maps were updated. And I think the map series in here is slightly later. So that is just, as I say, a whistle-stop brief introduction to the foundational areas of Irish family history research. Do join the Irish Family History Society if you want more information. We have a wonderful knowledge centre. Here are all our socials, and any questions, do let us know. Thank you very much for your attention.